Welcome to the Chris Hanna Show. Welcome to Season 1 of the Chris Hanna Show. I am excited to have you here today with me. We're going to talk about evolving management. Now, yes, that is the name of my company, and it's where I focus on trying to help people, specifically leaders and other companies, rethink and evolve their approach to managing. Specifically, the employee experience. I've had the opportunity to build and lead teams across a variety of industries that have produced game-changing and award-winning results. And the thing that I have realized throughout my entire career is that regardless of the team, it's all about people. And more importantly, it's all about the employee experience. Early on in my career, I have to admit, I was probably not the best employee. I didn't enjoy what I did. I was miserable. I actively tried to help other people find jobs and look for jobs myself because I was disengaged. I did so because the employee experience wasn't what I wanted it to be. Now, the more disengaged you are, the more you are going to have a negative effect on customers and one another. Because the truth is, it's contagious when there are issues that pop up within an organization, and those negative feelings and those thoughts infect other people. Now, when I became a leader, I started to realize that I needed to change my approach. I needed to evolve the approach. And I started to realize that more than anything else, it's what people who make the difference that really help produce the results that we're looking for in an organization. And so over time, I started to realize that there was a difference also with the leader that you had that would determine whether a team or a business was going to be successful or not. Because if a leader is not effective, they have a huge role and a huge impact on not only the employee experience, but the customer experience as well. If I could focus on trying to be the best leader I possibly could be, I knew that my results and the results of my team could be game-changing. So wherever possible, I tried to invest in myself, attending courses, going to different conferences or workshops, reading and consuming so much different material on leadership, listening to podcasts, watching videos, all with the same goal in mind, to evolve how I managed myself and my team. Now, eventually, over time, I started to realize that there's an opportunity to share this message more broadly. At one point in my life, I used to do acting and public speaking, and so I always wanted to do more of that, especially when I started attending different conferences. I'd see people up on stage and I'd say, hey, I can do that. But I never took the opportunity to do so. I was concerned about how it would be perceived if I did it. And then one opportunity came up where I thought, you know what, why don't I apply to speak at that conference? What's the worst that can happen? They say no? So I did it. I put together a proposal. I actually put together my entire slide deck, and I threw it out there to the universe and waited to see what would happen. And I got rejected. They said they weren't going to move forward with me, but they appreciated me taking the time to fill out their application. But then what happened a couple of weeks later completely surprised me. I was asked to become a featured contributor and share my insights and my expertise into the customer experience and the role that leaders have on customer experience, and write regular articles for an association. I didn't go looking for this opportunity, it just happened to find me. And I thought, okay, this could be my opportunity to do something. Maybe it can lead to the type of career and ultimately the type of fulfillment that I want and what I'm looking for. So I started writing some articles, and before I knew it, I started being asked to do webinars. And then I applied to speaking engagements, and little did we know, I started being accepted. I spoke in Chicago. I spoke at virtual events Before the pandemic happened, I was supposed to speak at a lot of events in Las Vegas and in Florida. And I started to realize that there's something here. And it's all about how I evolved my approach and my style of leadership and ultimately management of my career and my team that I wanted to share more broadly. And that's what led to me to found Evolving Management. What became a blog basically became a business where I started offering speaking sessions. And that has evolved now into coaching and consulting, where I'm helping to offer my expertise as a consultant to help improve the customer experience through having a great employee experience. Coaching has developed for me in a way that it's been pretty natural, to be honest. I've managed so many people throughout my career, especially teams that have been global in nature, and I get to use those coaching skills to help build a new group of leaders, essentially. It's important that we take the time to share. So through my coaching, I share what's worked and what hasn't worked for me. What are some of the lessons and some of the pitfalls that people need to watch out for when it comes to being a leader? Because leading a team is tough. We're talking about people, yes, but we're also talking about situations, processes, tools, maybe office politics, things that you need to navigate around as a leader that are really tricky and tough. And I'll tell you right now, I've made a ton of mistakes. I'm certainly not perfect. I don't pretend to be perfect. But ultimately, I have evolved my approach, and I'm continuing to evolve my approach because my goal is always the same with anything I do personally, professionally, when I'm leading teams, and that is to be better today than I was yesterday. It's that slow evolution. It's the crawl, walk, run, and ultimately, I think, leap approach that I'm looking to do and what I'm looking to offer people. We have to take it slow and realize that we have to continue to grow and evolve and change our approach. That's the only way that we're going to be as successful as we want to be, by being intentional. Now, in June 2020, I decided to launch my podcast, and that is obviously called The Chris Hannah Show. And this episode you're listening to today was the first episode, and it was called Evolving Management, and originally, it was a completely different recording. This is a re-recording that's done entirely unscripted, because the first version, I read a script, and while it gave a good introduction about who I am and what I do, it didn't delve deep enough, in my opinion. And with any podcast, of course, the first episode is always the most popular episode, and so it received the most amount of listens. But I knew that I needed to re-record this one because, again, I've evolved my approach. For the longest time, I had been working full-time while starting to build out my own brands and businesses. And offering services while working full-time was tricky. It was tricky from a variety of different perspectives. I think the first one is just the perception. The fear that happens that comes really with trying to do something that's on your own, that's outside of a company that you work with. I always knew that I wanted to work for myself. Heck, I've been entrepreneurial since I was a little kid. I was the person at garage sales. I was trying to flip hockey cards or pogs at recess, trying to sell self-improvement cassettes, if we go back way back when, to help people study in high school. So I've always been entrepreneurial, and I've always had that urge to work on my own. But as I started to go down this journey of starting to build my own, what you could call a hobby, which then became a side hustle now into a business, I started to realize that the corporate world was not for me. I had changed. I had evolved. And while the events of 2020 and the pandemic gotten really crazy for a lot of companies and people, eventually, that in combination with some other factors had led to me now deciding to strike out completely on my own. To build my own business, my own brand, and rely 100% on myself to do so. It's scary, it's exciting, it's ultimately more fulfilling when you go on your own and you don't have the safety net of a full-time position. Who knows what happens or what comes of it? But one thing I do know is that it is something that makes me happy. And I think that is really the definition of success. And that is happiness. Doing something that you love, that brings you the freedom and the flexibility, and probably leads to the level of fulfillment that you're ultimately looking for. Because I think right now, we've got a problem in many organizations that people are just disengaged. I became disengaged the more I worked in a corporate environment. I realized that it wasn't for me. I didn't want to continue to implement somebody else's vision. And that got me looking for something else. And it was a slow journey to get to this point, but ultimately it was the right journey and the right path for me. I get to do what I want every single day. And I don't know what each day is going to lead to, and I don't know where I'm going to continue to take this. But I do know I'm going to continue to evolve my approach. So I'm evolving my approach, and I hope to help other people do the same. I want to help people improve their employee experience, and by extension, help with the customer experience. Because the more that we can improve the employee experience, the better off we're going to be. But more importantly than that, I think we actually have to look at it one level deeper and say that the leadership experience also needs to be improved. We talk so much about employee experiences, but we forget that leaders are so important. And if leaders are not taken care of, they become disengaged and they look for other opportunities. And a lot of leaders have been superstars to get to the points that they are at in their career. But organizations, and even those at the highest level, other leaders themselves, don't recognize or appreciate the efforts of some leaders, like the managers, the supervisor level. So I think there's an opportunity for senior leaders and executives to look at things differently and to realize that they need to evolve their approach. So if you're looking for assistance or help in trying to create an employee experience, and more importantly, a leadership experience that helps drive a positive customer experience, I'm happy to connect and share. I offer a free 30-minute consultation that you can book on my website, either evolvingmanagement.com or chrishanna.ca. Feel free to book time with me and discuss how I might be able to help you take it to the next level. How we might be able to evolve your approach and achieve more. As a coach, consultant, or professional speaker at your next event, whether it's live or in person, I know that I can provide some value. But more importantly, I think that we can learn from each other. The more that we can connect, learn, grow, and share, the better off we're going to be. Again, remember, the goal is always the same. Be better today than you were yesterday. So that's it for this re-recording of Season 1, Episode 1 of The Chris Hanna Show, where we're talking about evolving management. Until next time, this has been The Chris Hanna Show. Thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Chris Hanna Show. As always, the latest episodes are available to listen and subscribe to on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can also follow The Chris Hanna Show on LinkedIn, Instagram, or Twitter. For more resources and solutions, including blog posts, toolkits, ebooks, speaking sessions, and more, visit chrishanna.ca today. We look forward to connecting again with you soon for another episode of The Chris Hanna Show.